the river, from the temple, oh, there we'll see your face. Again, the same thing. Israel, oh Israel, stones upon my heart. The tribes of the Holy King never will depart. 12 mighty stones are we're raised and set in place by the river, from the temple, oh, there we'll see your face. Written on the covenant to learn, all will see you face to face. Messiah will return, engraved on stones from heaven with finger made of fire. Israel and Judah will return to lift you higher. Israel, stones upon my heart. Tribes of the Holy King, we never will depart. 12 mighty stones are we're raised and set in place by the river, from the temple, oh, it's there we'll see your face. My fire and Teshuvah return to be restored. Israel, my holy son, him I turn to war. As many times I struck him, that many times I recall. My love for all of Israel, my mercy to him all. Oh, Israel, Israel, the stone upon my heart. The times of the Holy One never will depart. 12 mighty stones are we raised and set in place by the altar, from the temple, oh, there we'll see your face. Set firm upon my heart, where you speak from heaven's throne. Stones engraved on your shoulders bear the people that you know. No stones set firm upon my heart, where you speak from heaven's throne. Stones engraved on your shoulders bear the people that you know. No, Israel, oh Israel, the stones upon my heart. The tribes of the Holy One, they never will depart. Oh, 12 mighty stones are we raised and set in place by the river, from the temple, for there we'll see your face. Written on the inner parts, written on the inner parts, the covenant to learn. All will see face to face, Messiah will return. Engraved on stones from heaven, with finger made of fire. Israel and Judah will return to lift you high. Israel, oh Israel, the stones upon my heart. The tribes of the Holy One, we never will depart. 12 mighty stones are we raised and set in place by the river, from the temple. It's there we'll see your face. Oh Israel, the stones upon my heart. from the temple, there show us your face. Thank you, Lord, for writing your Torah by your Spirit on our heart. I ask that you'd braid together Torah and Spirit, and that you would show us your love, your amazing, unending love for Israel, and therefore your unending love for the world. Thank you, Abba. You may be seated. Well, we're in the final Torah portion of Bereshit, and God ends the Torah portion with a prophecy to the 12 tribes. That's what it ends with. And in Rashi and the other sages, you know what they say? They say he doesn't do that. He says, come here, let me show you what's going to happen in the Acharit Yamim, in the last days. And then he doesn't tell it. He doesn't say it. Because what they say is the Holy Spirit left him so that he couldn't say it. But that may be true for them, but it's not true in the bigger picture, because these prophecies that he gave definitely relate to the day of the Lord. There's just no doubt about it. I'm not going to talk about that, believe it or not. I always talk about the day of the Lord. I'm not going to talk about the day of the Lord today. What I'm going to talk about is Kanye West. Yes, that's right. And Farrakhan. And Hebrew Israelites, and the American Indians, and the Japanese, and all the other and the entirety of the church. Because everybody wants to be Israel, and I don't know why. Everybody wants to be Israel. Kanye West said, I can't be anti-Semitic because I'm a true Jew. That came from Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. They say they can't be Semitic because they're the true Jews. The American Indians, many of them, not all of them, of course, but many of them say that they're the true Israel. Japanese, did you know this, that many tens of thousands of Japanese believe that they're the true Israel? And I'm not talking about like a little cluster. I'm talking about from their religion. They believe they're the true Israel. Why would they even believe there's an Israel? But they do. Did you know that almost every religion on the planet ends up saying that they're the true Israel? Did you know that? Yeah. That to me is just crazy. Why would anybody want to be Israel? Because there's nothing but problems for the Jewish people. Now, when I say Israel, I'm going to make it, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to prove to you why. I'm going to make it synonymous with Jews. Most of the world doesn't believe that. Most of the world, because of the New Testament, and I'll show you the verses that cause this problem, most of the world, because of the New Testament, believes that Israel is different from Jews. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk very carefully. By the way, I've never done this before. I've never taught this in an orderly, systematic manner. Mentioned it, but I've never taught it. Well, today I'm going to actually teach how it is that there's a whole movement in Hebrew Christianity, the Hebrew Christians, the Hebrew roots movement, and in some of Messianic Judaism, called the two-house theory, the two-house movement, they call it. And what they're saying essentially is, when you look in the Bible and it says Israel, it's talking about God gathering all the people that look like Gentiles and lived like Gentiles, but are really one of the 12 tribes, one of the 10 tribes, the lost tribes of Israel, which, by the way, were not lost. That is a myth. They were not lost, which I'll show you. I'm not going to say anything that I don't firmly establish, and you can study it out for yourself. We're going to walk very carefully through this process of why this is a mythology, that there's two houses, and the one house is the Jews, and one house is the Christians. So I'm gonna dispel that myth. Now, I mean, think about it. Basically, everything in Judaism we say with the word Israel in it. Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Torat Yisrael, the Torah of Israel. Everything about our life, everything in our culture is labeled with Israel. So let's look at it like that. The children of the church, the people of Christianity, the land of the dispersed people who thought they were Gentiles, the Torah of those who thought previously that they were Gentiles, but now they know they're Israel. It's ridiculous, and I'm going to show you why it's ridiculous. Torah, the land, the people, the children are all labeled with Israel because Israel is the Jews. They are synonymous words. Now, most of you take this for granted, but I got news for you. The world doesn't. Most of the world does not have those synonymous. They're separate. So, Romans 9 and Galatians 6 are where we're going to start. We usually don't start with the New Testament. We save that for the end of the book, because that's in the end of the book. But today we're going to start with it to show you what we're shooting for. This is our target. Title of the teaching is The Israel of God. The Israel of God. Now, again, I want to stress this. If you're in most of the world, especially America, and you read The Israel of God, you would most likely think believers in Jesus. People in that group think to themselves, they don't think Jews, they think believers in Jesus. I'm going to show you where that came from. Now, in Romans 9 it says, but it is not as though the word of God has failed, and this has been quoted to me for 42 years. They are not all Israel who are from Israel. It's us. That's what I've been told for 42 years by Christians, by believers. They are not all Israel who are from Israel. What about us? Now in Galatians 6, it's where we get the phrase Israel of God, as if it's something different from what previously was. All who want to make a good showing in the flesh try to compel you to be circumcised, in other words, to become like a Jew, simply so that they will not be persecuted for the cross of Messiah. But those who are circumcised, those who are Jewish, don't even keep the Torah themselves. And that's the key. But those who are circumcised, those who are Jewish, don't even keep the Torah themselves. But they want to have you, looking like a Jew, be circumcised so they can brag. Now he says, for neither is circumcision, and that is a New Testament idiom for being a Jew, for neither being a Jew is anything, nor uncircumcision. And that's an idiom in the New Testament for being a Gentile. So we'll read it like that. And by the way, you can verify that. For neither is being a Jew anything, or being a Gentile anything, but a new creation. Now we're going to circle back to this at the end of the teaching. So just, keep that on your back burner. Peace and mercy be on everybody who follows this. Now in Hebrew, this would be chok, this statute. Peace and mercy be on all who follow this statute, this chok, and on the Israel of God. So, what chok? What chok? What statute? The statute is that being a Gentile is nothing, and being a Jew is nothing, but being a new thing. Whoever that is. And that new thing is Yisrael shel Elohim, the Israel of God. So that's what we're shooting for. Now, in order to get there, we are going to go through all 12 tribes. Last year I started designing, like, you know how a lot of congregations have banners of the tribes? Well, I started design. I like some of them are okay, some of them are bad. It's just my own personal preference, but I started designing a logo for each tribe. Because everybody does it, so I figured, why don't I do it? So I did. I came up with a logo, a graphic for each tribe to help you remember the tribes. And we're going to go through each tribe, and I'm going to present these images of that I came up with for each tribe. So here's where we're going to start. Genesis 49 in the Torah portion. Yaakov called his sons and said, "Gather together, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the Acharit Yamim." But then, as I said, Rashi and the other sages, some of the other sages say, he never did it. He never said what's going to happen to them in the Acharit Yamim, because the Holy Spirit went away. I don't believe the Holy Spirit went away, but I think that for them, for those guys and their children, for the next few generations, yeah, it had nothing to do with them, because it's about the day of the Lord. So then he says, now remember, he said, gather together. Then he says, collect yourselves. Collect yourselves. And listen, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Yisrael, your father. Reuven, my firstborn, my might and beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power, uncontrollable as water. You shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Now this is a sin that Reuven committed. May not be what you think, but be that as it may, he sinned, and so he lost. He's the firstborn. He lost the birthright for the firstborn. Who did the firstborn birthright go to? Anybody know? Benjamin?
No, Simeon.
Simeon. No, it did not go to Simeon. Joseph. Went all the way down to Joseph, the firstborn. Well, that's who God took it off of Reuben and he stuck it on Joseph. So there's the water. He's unstable as water, but he's the beginning of my might and my strength still. Simeon and Levi are lumped together. So I just have the banner for Shimeon. Shimeon and Levi are brothers. They're vessels of violence. Now the word in Hebrew is Hamas. Where else did we see Hamas? Do you remember?
On TV.
No, not on TV. In the Bible. I'm asking about the Bible. Where do we see the word Hamas? Anybody remember? Genesis. When God looked down and he saw all the world was filled with Hamas. It's violence, but it's also robbery. So it's like armed robbery. But he says about Levi and Shimeon, you are vessels, your instruments, your weapons of violence. You love violence. You love it. Their vessels of Hamas are their weapons. May my soul not enter into their counsel. May my glory not be united with their assembly. For in their anger they killed men. Who did they kill in their anger? Anybody remember? Very good, Eileen. The ones who raped Dinah, their sister, the brother's sister Dinah. She had gone to Shechem. They all moved to Shechem. And the son of Shechem, Hamor, raped Dinah. And so Simeon and Levi said, you can't touch our women. You have to be circumcised. And so the entire town circumcised themselves. Every man circumcised themselves so they could have these Jewish women. And they did this, I guess, out of the goodness of their heart. And while they were on the third day, which is like the hardest day for healing, Simeon and Levi came in. And by the way, they were teenagers. They were like 13, 14 years old. And they killed the entirety of the town's men in violence. These kids just wiped out an entire town. Now, Jacob heard about it and he didn't rebuke them. So later on, now when it comes time for the blessing, now he brings it up. Now he brings it up. And he says, may my soul not enter into their counsel. May my glory not be united with their assembly, because in their anger they killed men, and in their self-will they lamed a bull. Now the bull is not a bull. The bull is the men. Kind of like in the Mexican culture, like a bull is it's the image of a strong man. And they'll even call each other way, a bull. It's very rude in the Mexican culture, but we hear it with English word bull. So you called a guy a bull. What's the big deal? In the Mexican culture, it's very rude. But it's the same concept. In Spain, they call a man a bull. Very strong, mighty. And that's what they're saying here. In their self-will, they lamed a bull. Cursed is their anger, for it is fierce. Cursed is their anger, because it's fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them among Israel. What was Aaron, the head of the tribe of Levi? Levi's one of these violent guys. What was Aaron, the head of the tribe of Levi, known for? Anybody know? What was he known for? They're like his attribute, his midah. He had a midah that he's very famous for. Anybody know? No? Peacemaking. The opposite of his nature from his forefathers. The opposite. So Aaron, which came later after Levi had in his DNA violence, and it is a midah. It's an attribute that I have to fight all the time because I'm from Levi, I guess, or just because I was raised bad. I don't know, or both. But Aaron fought it, and he won. He was a true peacemaker. Then he says, cursed is their anger, for it's fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them among Israel. Now, how was Levi dispersed among Israel? 48 Levitical cities. Remember, throughout all Israel, there were 48 Levitical cities. And so God spread Levi around. Why? Because if you bring the electrons of plutonium together, you have a nuclear explosion. And that works the same way here. If you bring all of the tribe of Levi together, you're going to have a nuclear war because of that innate violence in them. By the way, these are not my words. These are the words of the sages. They didn't say plutonium, but they said that God had to disperse all of Levi because if you brought them all together in one place for too long a period of time, you're going to have war, immediate war. That's Levi and Shimon. Yehuda, I like this logo a lot. Yehuda, your brothers Yahadu. Yehuda, your brothers Yahad. Same word. This is a play on words. Your brothers praise you. Your hand on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. A cub and a grown lion is Judah. Now let me say something about the translations of all these prophecies. I went through every single word in Hebrew to make sure that they were exactly perfect. So you can trust this translation. I didn't just take a translation from New American Standard or the one that is on Chabad. I started with that one on the Chabad site. I started with that version, and then I checked every single word. A cub and a grown lion is Judah. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. This is an idiom that does not mean between his feet. It means between his legs. Now, when Abraham had Eliezer swear to him to go get a wife for his son Isaac, he said, "Put your hand under my thigh and swear to me." And what he was doing was he was holding Abraham's testicles. Because in the testicles is what? Seed, zerah. And he's swearing by the seed which God gave him. Well, the same thing is true here. It's not between the feet, it's between the legs. It's the seed of Judah. The seed of Judah. So let's read it like that. The scepter will not depart. What's the scepter? What's the scepter? The kingdom, what the king holds in his hand to make judgments with. So it's the sign of the kingdom. The scepter, the king's authority, will not depart from Judah. In other words, there will always be a king of the Jews. There will always be a king of the Jews. Nor the ruler's staff. That's the same thing. That's the staff, the scepter. Will not depart from between his legs, from the seed of Judah. That's what it's saying. Until Shiloh comes. Now, Shiloh is a title for the Messiah. Shiloh. To him is the gathering of the peoples. So the question has always been, which peoples? Now, those who believe in the, quote, two-house theory, they read this and they go, see, you see, God's going to gather all of us who thought we were Gentiles and were really Israel. And here's one of the verses they base it on. Not even close. God is going to regather all of Israel. But he's going to start with Judah. He has to regather Judah first. And he says, until Shiloh comes, to him the gathering of all the peoples will be. This is not just Judah, it's not just Israel, but it's the Gentiles too. In other words, all the world, all the Gentiles and the Jews are going to come together to Judah. To Judah. No, he's going to invite everybody into the party to Judah. What was said was a party crasher. So then it says, he ties his foal to a vine, and to a tendril his young donkey. He tramples in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes, dark flashing, his eyes from wine, white-toothed from milk. In the Bible, what is milk? Thank you, Torah. So he's eating Torah, and it makes his teeth white. And his eyes are flashing from blood. Now here it says, his robes he tramples in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. Now this is echoed 2 times in the Bible. Number 1 is in Isaiah chapter 63, when it describes the King of the Jews coming and trampling on the blood of grapes. And then it's in Revelation, two verses in Revelation. Isaiah 63, who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah, this one glorious in his apparel, in the greatness of his strength, I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Why is your apparel red and your garments like one who treads in the winepress? I have trodden the winepress alone. From the peoples no one was with me. For I have trodden them in my anger and trampled them in my fury. Their blood is sprinkled on all my garments. I've stained all my robes, for the day of vengeance is in my heart. I have trodden down peoples in my anger. So this is in the day of the Lord, at the literal coming of Messiah to the earth, when he just tromps on humans, and the blood just goes everywhere. Everywhere. Now, who is this going to do this? The King of the Jews. The King of the Jews. The King of Judah. Yeah? Yes. King of the Jews. Okay. This is repeated in Revelation. Another angel came out from the altar who had power over fire, and he cried out loudly to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine, for her grapes are fully ripe. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth, threw it into the winepress of the wrath of God, and the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress. And it says, came up to the bridle's horse. The horse's bridle, sorry. The horse's bridle. That's about this high. Revelation 19, out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, with it to strike the nations, the Gentiles. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. So this is the King of the Jews in his coming. Prophesied all the way back there from Israel, prophesying to Judah. Now remember, Vayigash, last Torah portion, Judah approached Joseph. And that's when the whole story flipped, remember? Judah said, he was humble. He said, look, sir, I have to save my brother. I cannot let you imprison Benjamin. I can't. It'll kill my father. And then he said, and if you don't listen to me, I'm going to destroy the entire land of Egypt. So he came humbly, but he came in warfare. And that's when the whole story flipped. And God restored Joseph and the brothers. Remember? From last week. So now, this is no different. This is still Judah. And he's coming in war. So that was also a picture of Yeshua coming in war. Now, we come to Zebulun. Nobody can figure out Zebulun. Nobody. I looked and looked and looked and looked on the internet. Nobody understands this. Not the rabbis, not the sages, not Christians. Nobody. So don't look to me for an answer because I don't get it either. And here's the problem. The problem is there's a word repeated over and over, several words repeated over and over in this tiny little prophecy that make zero sense. Zebulun will dwell to the coast of the seas. Look at the map. Zebulun is landlocked. It's not by the coast of the Sea of Galilee, and it's not by the coast of the Mediterranean. It is completely landlocked. It is sandwiched between Asher and Naphtali. You can't get anywhere near a coast with Zebulun's borders. So it says, Zebulun will dwell to the coast of the seas. That's a lie. And he to the coast for ships. That's a lie. And his flank, that means his rear side, will be towards Sidon. Look where Sidon is. Way up in Lebanon. That's another lie. Nobody can solve this riddle that I've found. And I searched and searched and searched. Now, if you can find an answer from the sages, hey, God bless you. Show me it. I looked. I couldn't find one. So I do not understand this. But it says in the Talmud that the banner for the tribe of Zebulun had a ship on it. And it was white. And the stone for this tribe is the diamond, Yachalom, which is white. But they couldn't figure it out either. Why? Why does it have a ship on it if Zebulun is landlocked? Isn't that strange? So I'm going to leave you with that, and you can figure it out on your own. I can't figure it out. All I know is Zebulun is completely landlocked. And remember, he said that these are words that pertain to what?
The last days.
Right, the last days, the Acharit Yamim. He said these are prophecies that relate to the Acharit Yamim, the last day, the day of the Lord. So somehow, I'm thinking that in the day of the Lord, Zebulun will extend to the sea and somehow be related to Sidon. So maybe there's prophecies in the Bible that talk about Zebulun relating to Lebanon or Sidon or Tyre, Tyre, which is its sister city. I'll leave you with that. All right, Yisachar. By the way, it's not Issachar, it's Yisachar. 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 Yisachar is a strong donkey lying down between the boundaries or judgments. We don't know how to translate it because it says mishpataim, but it could be read mishpatim. They're both written exactly the same. It's just a vowel difference. So they don't know how to pronounce it, and so they say it's both. Laying down between boundaries, laying down between judgments. And here's why. These guys were really, really important. Yisachar was a really important tribe. I'll show you why. Because they laid down between judgments, mishpatim. He saw resting place. In Hebrew, menucha. What is the menucha? Okay, but what is it? The kingdom. The kingdom. Menucha is the kingdom. He saw it. Yisachar saw it. He saw menucha. It's going to say something else that proves it. He saw menucha, and it was good. And haaretz, he saw the land, for it was pleasant. It's not talking about the land of Israel. It's not talking about his boundary that he wouldn't get for another 200 years. No, sorry, 250 years. He wouldn't get that for another 250 years. It's talking about the kingdom. Who are we talking about? Yisachar. Yisachar. Look where they are. It's up in the Galilee, kind of an insignificant place, although in his territory is Har Megiddo, Armageddon, but it's kind of an insignificant area. And so his land wasn't the important thing. What was important was that he saw the kingdom, and so he was able to make right judgments. Now, this is what the rabbis say. This is, well, at least this is what Rashi says. But before we get to that. So he sees the menucha, he sees haaretz, the land, and we know the land is the kingdom from Hebrews chapter 3 and 4. For it was pleasant. He bowed his shoulder to carry burdens. Sounds bad. And even if when you read the translation, it'll say, he was put to forced labor. Not what it says in Hebrew. It says, for works of service. Avodat. What is works of service in the Bible? Anybody know? Yes, serving in the tabernacle. Serving in the tabernacle. It's the same phrase, used over and over and over and over again for the priests and the Levites working in the temple. Now, he's not a priest. He's not a Levite. He's not from the tribe of Levi. But he did do this amazing job of interpreting the Torah for Israel. This is what the rabbis say. At least Rashi says this. And he quotes the Talmud. I'm sorry, the Midrash in Genesis Rabbah. To decide for them, for Israel, instructions of the Torah and the sequence of leap years. The sequence of leap years, as it is said. Now, this is really important. If you don't know when the leap years are, you don't know how to set the calendar, the Jewish calendar. Impossible. And if you don't set the Jewish calendar, how are you going to know when to do the festivals? So, setting the leap year is not just setting the leap year. It's figuring out the entirety of the Jewish calendar. That's what it means. Let's see. Sequence of leap years, as it is said in the Torah, in the Tanakh. And of the sons of Issachar were chosen those who had an understanding of the times. Now, every believer I know wants to, quote, understand the times. And so what do? They look on the news, they look on the internet, they look on Facebook, they look at all this nonsense, and they don't look at Judaism and the cycle of the Jewish year so they can understand the times. Or they'll get a little nugget from one of the festivals and they'll blow it up into a big doctrine and stick it on the internet, and they have no understanding of Hebrew. And they have no understanding of the sages' words, but it's on the internet. And so people read it and they think it's true. It is not true. The only way to know the times is to know the Jewish cycle of the year, the calendar. And that's what they knew. And of the sons of Issachar, those who had an understanding of the times, to know what Israel should do. And this is amazing to me. How do you know what to do in winter? I mean, the whole world is buying presents and celebrating in winter. How do you know what to do in summer? Everybody's going on vacations and putting on bathing suits. Okay. How do you know what to do any time of your life? The only way to know it is to know the times, the cycle of the Jewish year. And once you study it, and once it talks to you, you get a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and you add to your knowledge of what to do in your life. That's how it works. And they were able to teach this. To know what Israel should do, their chiefs were 200. Now, when it says their chiefs were 200, this is how the sages interpret that. He, Issachar, provided 200 heads of the Sanhedrin. Do you know what the Sanhedrin is? The Sanhedrin? It's, how many judges were in the Sanhedrin? Anybody know? 71, 72. Very good. 71 and or 72, depending. They need to break a tie. Very good. And they met in the temple area. In the temple area. Only priests and Levites do that. But they did it. Because they were doing the acts of the priests and Levites, knowing the times. And their brothers listened to their word. That's what it says in the Torah. And their brothers listened to their word. All right, so this is a very, very important tribe, Yisachar. Now we come to Dan. Dan's image or symbol is a snake and balances. Dan shall judge. That's why the balances. Remember Tishri, during the month of Tishri, at Rosh Hashanah, God judges every single spirit that is alive, every year. Dan shall judge. Now the word Dan is repeated here, Yadin. Dan shall Dan his people. Dan shall Yadin his people. Like one. That's what it says. It doesn't say like one of the tribes. It does not say that. It says, Dan shall judge his people like one. Like Echad. Ka'echad. The tribes of Israel, Dan shall be a serpent on the derech. Now, what's the derech? What is the derech? Judaism or what? I can't hear you. Yeah, but what is it? It was the name of the believers in the first century. Remember in the book of Acts, it says it 4 times. They were called Haderech in the first century, the way. So these are those who believe in God and they're walking holech, doing halacha. Holech means, that's where the word halacha, quote, the laws. Halacha comes from the word holech, which means to walk. Well, how do we walk? How do we walk the way? We learn from what God gave to Israel, and we learn how to walk the way. But this says, Dan shall be a serpent in the way, in the derech. A serpent on the derech, an adder on the long road. Orech means to lengthen or stretch, a long road, that bites the horse's heels so that the rider falls backwards. Ki Yeshuatecha kiviti Adonai. Lo Yeshuatecha kiviti Adonai. For or to your salvation, to your Yeshua, we wait, O Lord. Now remember, he said these prophecies relate to when? In the kingdom, in the Acharit Yamim, yes? In the kingdom, Dan, this is my doctrine, this is just what I'm saying, so you can take it or leave it. I'm not saying what the sages say here, I'm saying what I say. Dan might produce the false Messiah. A lot of people believe this, that Dan, the false Messiah, will come from Dan. Comes from Israel, comes from one of the tribes. He's in the derech, so he looks like a good guy, like a white hat, but he's really a bad hat. He's a serpent. He's a nachash in the way. Where do we first see nachash? Genesis 3, when the nachash deceives Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, yeah? Well, the same word, nachash. And it says that he will be in the derech and he will bite the horse's heel so that the rider falls backwards and falls. And then it says, Yeshua kaviti Adonai, for your salvation we wait, O Lord. So it sounds like the believers waiting for the coming of the Messiah to earth in the day of the Lord, and they're being persecuted by Dan. Definitely going to be persecuted by the false Messiah. Yes? Yeah. Says that in Daniel chapter 12, that he will make war on the holy ones until there's nobody left. And so it could be that the false Messiah is coming from Dan. You can research that on your own. Now we come to God. I think this is my favorite banner. This is my favorite one. I just finished this last night. I love this image. God. Now, it says the word God 4 times here. God. Gadud will yagudenu. And it will yagud back on its heel. It says it 4 times. Gad, agad, gadud. That means like more than one troop. Will troop forth, yagudenu, from him. And it will troop, yagud, back on its heel. Now when it says back on its heel, it doesn't mean like thrown back. It means he'll return in the same footsteps. Now, when Israel went in to take the west side of Israel, you had M'nasheh and Gad and Reuben, who stayed on the east side of the Jordan, yes? Well, Moses got really mad about this, and he said, you got to come in and help us take the land. And they said, we're going to. No, you don't understand. You've got to do it. And they said, okay, we're going to. You not listening to me. And you read it, and you're like, why is he going off on them? They already said they're going to do it. Well, the reason was he saw what was going to happen in the future. That M'nasheh and Ephraim, M'nasheh on the west, and M'nasheh on the east, and Ephraim on the east, sorry, other way around, M'nasheh on the east, and M'nasheh on the west, and Ephraim on the west, were going to go into deep, deep idolatry. And Gad was going to go with them. And Reuben was going to go with them. So he was seeing into the future, and that's why he got mad. Well, when they went in to take the land, guess who went first? Gad. That's why he's a lion. And he's ready to fight. And he went in like a steamroller. And with just everybody in Gad was a mighty man. It's like the smallest one was a mighty man. They were just amazing in warfare. And so his whole prophecy is about his ability to make good warfare. God, Gadud, will Yagudenu, and it will Yagud back in the same track. So what that means is, when they finished taking the land, Gad went right back. They didn't lose anybody. They didn't lose a single man. And they went right back, and they took care of their land. So this is good, good on top of good. I like God a lot. Now, Asher. We're going to look at two pages of it. But it's all one story. It's all one story. Bad translation in most translations. It's really, really hard to get a good translation of this. So I really had to dig in the Hebrew, even though it's very short. In the picture, you see a table with really good food. And then there's a foot on the Aleph dipping in oil, because this was the prophecy. In Deuteronomy, the prophecy to Asher says they'll dip their foot in oil. Does not mean that there's going to be oil discovered in the tribe of Asher. It's not what it's about. But in this one it says, very short, it says, from Asher will come rich food. That's usually translated okay. But then it says he gives, one of the translations say royal dainties, right? Anybody see that? Royal dainties? That is an awful translation. It's awful. The word that they translate as dainties is Adan. And you know what it means? A yearly cycle. So I don't know where they get dainties from. I'm not sure what that's about. But it means timely. It's the word for time, Adan. So it's like timely things or yearly things. So it says, from Asher will come rich food. He gives timely things or yearly things, Hamelech, of the king. Well, what are the timely things of the king? What are the yearly things of the king? The festivals and the fasts of God's calendar, of the Jewish calendar. So Asher will give to Israel, just like Issachar, things about the festivals. Now, there's a story in the Talmud that's real long. I only have a very small part of it. But it's a real important story, so I got it here to read. The food from Asher's territory will be rich, for there's going to be a lot of olive trees in his territory, so that oil will flow like a fountain, not oil derricks. There was a whole huge movement from the 90s until now that they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars from Christians in America and billions of shekels from Jews in Israel working together because they just know they're going to find oil in Asher. Why? Because it says, "You shall dip his foot in oil." It's all a waste. This is about the oil of the Ruach HaKodesh. And Asher will be filled with it. Filled with it. What will Asher give? The times of the king. That's the Holy Spirit. The Jewish cycle of the year. That's the Holy Spirit. You get what I'm saying? The Torah and the Spirit are one. The food from Asher's territory will be rich. There will be many olive trees, so that oil will flow like a fountain. Like it says, he will dip his foot in oil. The people of Laodicea. Where do we know Laodicea from? You've read that. Laodicea, where's that? Say it loud. Yeah, Revelation, in the book of Revelation. The people of Laodicea once needed oil. It's not talking about Gentiles. It's talking about Jews. There's Jews in Laodicea. There always have been. The Jews in Laodicea once needed oil, so they appointed themselves a Gentile messenger. Not a Jewish messenger, a Gentile messenger. And they send out this Gentile messenger, "Go and bring us oil worth 1,000,000 coins." So he went to Jerusalem, and they told him, "Go to Tyre, way up in Lebanon." So he goes to Tyre, and they told him, "Go to Giscala in the tribe of Asher." So he goes to Giscala, and they told him, "Go to this certain field." So he goes to a certain field, and he found a man breaking up ground around his olive trees. And the messenger asked him, "Do you have 1,000,000 worth of oil?" And he says, "Yeah, but wait till I'm done working." I'm talking about 1,000,000 coins worth of oil. Yeah, I got that, but you got to wait till I'm done working today. And that is exactly how it's presented, just like I showed you. Yeah, you got to wait till I'm done working. The messenger waited. After the man finished, he went on his way, removing the stones from the path. That doesn't mean picking up a rock and throwing it. That means he's got his tool, and he's creating a road. And he's like doing more work. He's digging up rocks from this road. And so the guy has to wait even more. And they get to the house. And while they're going, while he's taking the stones out, he says, "I think the Jews lied to me. I think the Jews lied to me. This guy ain't got $1,000,000 worth of oil, of olive oil. They played a trick on me." The man arrived at his town finally, and the maid brought him hot water. And he's got to wait for the guy to wash his hands and feet. Then she brought him a gold cup of oil that he dipped his hands and feet in to fulfill the prophecy about Asher shall dip his hands in oil. He's got to wait and wait and wait and wait to fulfill Moshe's words. After they had dined, now they're going to eat dinner. He's got to wait some more. And after they've dined, the man measured out for the messenger oil worth 1,000,000 coins. And he asked the Gentile messenger, "Don't you need more than that?" "You got more?" "Oh yeah, I got a lot more." So he says, "I don't have any more money. The Jews just gave me a million. He says, that's all right. I'll give it to you and you can pay me when we get back to Laodicea. Which is absolutely unheard of because the Gentile's going to rip the Jew off. But he says, hey, I'll give it to you. So the messenger hired all the horses, all the mules, all the camels, all the donkeys that he could possibly find in the land of Israel to haul it all. And as soon as the messenger arrived back in Laodicea, the townspeople came out to praise him, the Gentile messenger. And he said, hey, don't praise me. I got this from some little Jewish dude who looked like he didn't have anything. And you know what? I still owe him 180,000. I still owe him 180,000. And this is all about the verse. There is one who acts like he's rich, but he has nothing. And one who acts like he's got nothing, and he's got everything. Now, what the rabbis say about this is really important. You may not like it, but this is what they say. This is an illustration of Israel and the nations. That Israel has nothing, but they are the richest people on the planet because they have God. And the Gentiles have everything, absolutely everything they could ever want, but they are poverty-stricken because they don't have the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what they say. I agree with that. Naphtali. Don't have much here. Naphtali is a swift gazelle who utters beautiful words. Now what it says is divrei shafarti. Shofar, like the word shofar, which means polished, bright, beautiful. And look what's coming out of the deer's mouth. Beautiful words. Now, the image on the banner is just a deer, but the words are what's important. The words that came out are beautiful words. So, in order to help you understand this, we're just going to read a couple verses. Deuteronomy 32 says, of Naphtali, he said, this is the prophecy for Naphtali by Moses. Of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied favorably and full with the blessing of the Lord, possess the sea. What sea? Sea of Galilee. And the south. Well, the south is Judah, so it's not the south. It's the south of the sea. The lower part, the south part of the sea. So he says, possess the sea and the south. And indeed, Naphtali's land touches the south of Galilee. Now, here's what it says in Genesis Rabbah. A swift gazelle. Jacob prophesied of the war with Sisera. When he gave this prophecy, he's a swift gazelle. When he gave that prophecy, he's talking about the war that was to come with Sisera in about 100 years. It says in Judges, take with you 10,000 men of the men of Naphtali. And they answered the call to war swiftly. Into the valley they rushed. They rushed. They rushed. That means they go fast. Naphtali is a swift gazelle, fast. In other words, they answer the call of God quick. And then it says, he shall give forth beautiful words. Well, Barak and Devorah, it says in Judges 5, sang this beautiful song because of Naphtali coming and helping with the battle. And they're saying that that's what this is a prophecy of. I'm going to add to that. I'm going to say in Isaiah 9, it says, before he treated the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali with contempt. In other words, they were hated. And the land of Naphtali with contempt. But later he will make it glorious by the way of the sea, the other side of the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. Now Galilee is Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, Asher, and up here, I don't know if you can see it, Dan. That's Galilee, Upper Israel. And they were like West Virginians. By God, they was up there, inbreeding and stuff like that. And they were just hated by the rest of Israel. They were like bumpkins. They were just backwoods rednecks. That's how they were looked at. But later on, it will be made glorious. So in the New Testament, it quotes this, which you'll see in a minute. It quotes this and it says, that's about the coming of the Messiah. This is about the coming of the Messiah. What's coming out of Naphtali's mouth? Beautiful words. So I would submit to you that Naphtali, which is the entire North Jordan, north of the River Jordan, and the entirety of the Sea of Galilee, which is where Yeshua was, that it's the gospel. It's preaching the word of the Messiah. Because it's up here. That's where he was. That's where he came from. That's where he was, which you'll see in a bit. So that's what I would submit to you, that this is about. Now we come to Yoseph. This is the big one. I think we're going to have to divide this teaching into two parts. Yeah? Does that sound okay? Joseph is a fruitful son. Now, your translations are awful. My translations are awful. New American Standard, King James, New International, even the Jewish Bible it's awful. The Jewish Bible is the closest. But nobody gets this right. What it says is this. It says, Yosef Porat ben Porat, the son of fruitfulness. Porat. When we say blessing over fruit, what do we say? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pori ha'etz, who brings forth the fruit from the tree. Porei, poretz, porei. Or porat, same word, means fruitfulness. I can't remember how it translates it in the other. What does it say in the other translations? Joseph is a fruitful bough. Is that what it says? A fruitful. Yeah, a fruitful bough. Doesn't say that. It says Joseph is fruitful or sweet son. Ben Porat, a fruitful son. A fruitful son to the eye. Now the translation goes off the rails. Women strode along to see him. That's what it says in Hebrew. And that is as accurate as we can possibly get. I really worked hard on this one. Strode along there's just no other way to translate it. Women, there's no other way to translate it. Women strode along to see him. Yireh, to see him. And the reason was, he was good looking. He was a good looking dude. Remember he used to do his hair in front of the mirror? And the rabbis castigate him for that. That he was very arrogant. He would sit in front of the mirror, he'd, do his hair and his makeup. And that's why his brothers were so hateful of him. They were like, you little Lord Fauntleroy. Get off your velvet throne, dude. And they hated him for it. And so when he went to Egypt, he didn't stop that immediately. Because now he's surrounded by all the people who do that. Everybody wore makeup in Egypt, men and women. So he's doing it. And all these women, it says that they would go out in the morning and they'd peer over the wall to get a look at him because he was so hot. It was like the show of The Bachelor when all the girls were like, oh my God, he's so good looking. It was like that. Yes, that's the main reason that Potiphar's wife went after him. That's the main reason. So he's a good-looking guy, and women are strode along to see him. Great bitterness they put on him and were quarrelsome. Archers hated him. Now it switches. It switches the story. Great bitterness they put on him and were quarrelsome. Archers hated him. Now remember, as we've been looking, Rebecca, at the story of the 12 tribes, when they were reunited with Yoseph, and Yoseph, how many times did Yoseph test the brothers? Everybody? 10 times. So he tested his brothers 10 times. And all the time they're doing this, the father, Israel, never knows what's happening. Right? And the 20 years that Joseph was gone, he never said word one to his dad. Even though he was the second most powerful guy in the world. Never sent a message to his dad to say, Daddy, I'm alive. It's okay. So Jacob doesn't know any of this stuff until finally he sends wagons, and Jacob sees the wagons and his spirit comes to life. And then he goes to Egypt to see his son. Well, it's been many years now. It's been 17 years after Jacob came to Egypt. 17 years. And they have tried not to put the other brothers down. They've tried. Jacob and Joseph have tried not to say anything negative about the brothers. But Jacob knows the story now. And now he's bringing up the story. And he's saying, great bitterness they put on Joseph, and were quarrelsome, and archers hated him. But his bow stayed firm, and his arms were agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father, that's me, Jacob talking, from the God of your father who helps you, and by Shaddai who blesses you. Blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. This is for the church. All right, this is where everybody goes off the rails. Remember, I started the teaching by saying that, most believers believe that Israel and Judah are separate, and that Israel is the believers in Yeshua, that Israel is the church. Or that all the believers who are drawn to Judaism and drawn to Hebrew roots and drawn to all that stuff, that they're really Israel and God is pulling them up out of the world. Sounds plausible. But because of that, they read this about Joseph and they go, oh, that's ours. That's ours. That belongs to us. The blessings of heaven above, the blessings of the deep beneath, the blessings of the breast and of the womb, the blessings of your father. The blessings of your father. His father is talking to him, Jacob. So his father is Israel. The blessings of your father, Israel. Now, I told you I was going to show you later that this is synonymous with Jews. They're the same thing. The blessings of your father, of me, Israel, have surpassed the blessings of my fathers. My fathers, Abraham and Isaac. Really? He had the worst life you can even imagine. Jacob had a horrible life. Horrible. In fact, when he went to the Pharaoh says, wow, how old are you, dude? Which, by the way, is not a good thing. You're not supposed to ask people how old they are. But he says, how old are you? And he goes, 137, and my life has sucked. I think he says 120 at that point. 120, and my life has sucked. And he says, oh, by the way, the rabbis say he shouldn't have said that. He basically spoke Lashon Hara about his life, about God. And so God cut his life a little short. A little bit short. Anyway, so he's had a horrible, rough life, man. It has not been good. But he says, my blessings have surpassed Abraham and Isaac's, who were gazillionaires. And then he says, to the ends of the everlasting hills, may all these blessings come to the head of Joseph, to the crown of the one separated from his brothers. And I'll bet you your translation doesn't say that. I think it says distinguished above his brothers. It doesn't say that. It says separated from. What's he referring to? When he was thrown in the pit. That's what he's talking about. Now, here's what the rabbis say. Well, at least Rashi says this from quoting the sages. To the ends of the everlasting hills, for he gave me a limitless blessing. Even though my life has sucked, God has given me a limitless blessing. Without boundaries, to the ends of the everlasting hills. In other words, there's no boundary. reaching the four corners of the earth. Because, he said, and you, Jacob, shall spread out westward and eastward and northward and southward. Did he say that to Abraham and Isaac? No. He never said that to them. All he said to them was, to Abraham, he said, please raise your eyes and see, for all the land I see will give you. All the land you see, I'll give you. He said that to Abraham. And to Isaac, he said, for to you and to your seed I'll give these lands, and I'll establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. He never said, I'm going to give you north, south, east, and west. That's the whole world. It's all the Gentiles. Now, this is the key point about this whole teaching that I guess I will continue next week. The whole teaching is this. Israel and Jew is synonymous. They are the same people. They're not separate. If you make them separate, you then take away what God said to Abraham. In you, all the what? Nations, Gentiles will be blessed. If there ain't no Gentiles, there ain't nobody to bring back. Right? There's nobody to bring them together with the Jews. If everybody's the same, then you just got one family. And all you're doing is bringing the family back together. You're not bringing somebody who don't belong there, which is the Gentiles. The Gentiles are supposed to be brought in to Israel. They don't belong there. But that was God's plan. Bring them in. Bring them in. Show them me. Now, I'm hoping you can see that in this part that I'm saying right now. He says to Jacob, to Israel, I'm going to give you Israel, north, south, east, and west. Afghanistan, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Antarctica, if there's anybody up there, New Jersey. I'm going to give you the whole world, Israel. And that's why you've had a horrible life. That's why you've had a horrible life. Because you have the greatest blessing that anybody could ever have, and that is to know me. That's what God says. It's the greatest blessing anybody could have, to know me. But that only lives within these 12 kids and their children. Noda bihuda Elohim. God is known in what? Judah. God is known in Judah. So he says, to the ends of the everlasting hill. There's no limit to this blessing I'm putting on you, Yoseph. Isaiah said, and I will provide you with the heritage of Jacob your father. Isaiah 58. But he didn't say the heritage of Abraham or the heritage of Isaac. He said the heritage of Jacob your father, which is the limit of the everlasting hills. There's no limit. It's the blessings that God gave to the Jews, to Israel, is limitless. And it's not about physical stuff. Ever, 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 ever. Which is why Jacob's life was so bad. Last one. Benjamin. I like this one too. I like this image. Benjamin, son of my right hand. Benjamin is a wolf. He will prey. In the morning, he'll devour the prey. At night, he'll divide the spoil. Now, this is also about warfare, and it's about taking. Say kach. That's how you say take in Hebrew. And Benjamin was all about kach. Not a bad kach, a good kach. In the 90s and 80s, there was a movement called kach. I can't even remember what the name of the rabbi who led it was, and I love this guy. Thank you, Rabbi Kahani. Rabbi Kahani. He led a movement called kach, which means take. And it was all about taking back Judea and Samaria, the parts of Israel that we were not inhabiting. And where was Jerusalem? Which tribe had Jerusalem? Benjamin. Not Judah. Benjamin. Why? Because it was just a continuation of Benjamin's history. Benjamin, the whole tribe of Benjamin was wiped out almost. Completely wiped out almost. Because this one stupid guy who did something stupid. And so all of the tribes said, we're going to wipe you out as a tribe. And they came, and this is a picture, by the way, that I can't go into right now. But they came and they wiped out the entire tribe except for a few. And so what did the tribe of Benjamin do? They went and got wives for themselves. They took them. And this day that they took them, what is it, the 17th of Av? I think it's the 17th of Av, became the second biggest day in all of Israel. Yom Kippur was one, and I believe it's 17th of Av was two. Big, 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 big day, like Valentine's Day times 1,000. Because it was a day that God set aside to go get your Besherta, your other half, your intended. And so they went and they took it. They took the bride. King Saul. There were horrible, horrible things going on with the Philistines. And the Philistines came and just wiped out all the Jews, and they said, we're going to wipe out the rest of you. And they said, wait, give us a few days. Please. Please give us a few days. Let us go search, and we're going to see if we got a savior. And so they went, they looked around, and Saul heard about this, and he went ballistic. And he came out with both barrels blazing, and he took the entire kingdom back. He was a great, great man, King Saul, until he wasn't. Go figure. So he took the kingdom and he made war. Now the city of Jerusalem was given to the tribe of Benjamin. But that's God's doing. But what's going to happen later in the kingdom? That Jerusalem is going to take over, kach, all the nations. You can believe me or not believe me, but I guarantee you there ain't going to be any crosses or baptismal tanks in the kingdom. There's not going to be any churches. There's not going to be any Buddhist centers. There's not going to be any whatever. It's going to be Judaism, the ways of Israel filling the entire earth. Whether you want it to be or not, that's how it's going to be. Jerusalem is going to swell and just fill the whole earth. That's what it says 4 times in the prophets. Jerusalem will do that. It'll swell, and its influence and its fruit will fill the whole earth. The whole earth. So it's going to take over the earth. Kach. And then in the book of, we celebrate Purim because of the book of Esther. Haman, thank you, Haman, yes. Haman raises up and, let me back up. King Saul was from what tribe? What are we talking about here? What tribe was he from? Benjamin. Okay. So he was good until he wasn't good. Well, when he wasn't good, he was supposed to kill this dude named Agag. And he didn't. And so God cursed him forever. Then we come to the book of Esther, and we have another Benjaminite, named Mordecai and Esther. They're both from the book of Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, and they are raised up to do the same exact thing. Kill Haman, who is an Agagite. He's from Agag. So God repeats the same picture over again, same story. And this time, Mordecai, it says, takes the house of Haman. That's what it says. And so we have the same thing. He takes the house of Haman, and what that means is like, picture the Kardashians' house. And then the other big mansions in L.A. Picture that. It's not just like a house. It means like the empire of Haman. And he takes it. And so God repeats this theme over and over again to show that Benjamin is going to take the whole earth. He's the youngest. He's the baby, right? He's the baby of the clan. So the youngest shall rule them all. One child to rule them all. One child's going to rule everybody, the youngest. That's God's plan. All right, so I am going to end with this one right here. We're just going to start, and then we'll finish the teaching next week. But I want to set it up. Yes, ma'am.
Last week,
Come on.
Judah, he was like working really hard, he was fighting so hard for Benjamin.
Yes.
Is that why he's fighting?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Last week we saw in the story that Judah did all that work and all that fighting and all that attitude to save Benjamin. That's why he did it, right? Well, same thing. Judah is going to fight for the youngest. Same thing. Same exact thing. So that story keeps repeating over and over. The Jewish people, the Jews, Judah, are going to fight for the young, those who cannot protect themselves and help themselves. And so after that, the youngest is raised up and he rules. That's exactly right. All right, so now we're going to set up for answering this question. And by the way, you may not know how big a thing this is, but I'm going to say this again. I've been watching this happen since I was a little kid. Everybody wants to be a Jew. Everybody wants to be Israel. I've heard this my whole life. I never understood it. I really didn't. I was like, why? I want what you got. Why would you want what we got? We got nothing. We're not allowed to do this, and we're not allowed to do that, and we're not allowed to eat pork, and we're not allowed to have, pepperoni pizza like you guys have, and we're not allowed to do Christmas, and we're not allowed to do anything. What do you want to live like me for? Because you are the chosen people of God. And as Tevye said, once in a while, can't you choose somebody else? Well, that's the whole story. Everybody wants to be Israel. Everybody. Every religion, every nation, everybody. Every people group. Well, now it's gotten really out of hand. You know why? The internet. It's gotten way out of hand. The, quote, two-house theory. Let me say it this way. Eileen and I used to always say, we probably shouldn't have, because maybe it's Lashon Hara. But I'll tell you what we would say. It's maybe Lashon Hara what we said, not for me to say it right now. We would see Gentiles come into the body, come into Messianic Judaism, and they're like, oh, I'm a Jew now, I'm a Jew now, I'm a Jew now. And we're like, dude, you don't know anything. You don't know Hebrew. You don't know anything. But they'd be saying stuff, and their heart may have been right, but we would call them wannabes. We probably shouldn't have done that, but we did. We called them wannabes. They want to be Jews. 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 They want to be fulfilled. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel comfortable in this weird setting that God is creating of Judaism. And God has created of Judaism. So I understand it. It's just really irritating. Because it didn't die out, it got much, 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 much bigger. So, here's where we're going to start the story. It's in 1 Kings 11. And here's where the trouble started. When Israel separated from Judah. If you look at the map, you'll see down on the bottom, Judah in light, light, light green. See that little island of darker green in the middle of it? Can you read that? Simeon. Simeon was down there. Well, right above the light green of Judah, you can barely see it, is Benjamin. That's yellow on the map. That's Benjamin. And the border between Benjamin and Judah is Jerusalem. That's where it is. It's right smack on the border between Judah and Benjamin. Everything above that, everything else, is northern Israel. So here's what happened. 1 Kings 11. It came about at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Achiah, the Shiloni, Shiloh is a suburb of Jerusalem, even today, found him on the road. Now he had clothed himself with a new cloak, and both of them were alone in the field. Then Achiah took hold of the new cloak, which was on him, and he tore it into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, take for yourself 10 pieces, because this is what God is saying. Look, I'm going to tear the kingdom away. That's why he ripped it. He ripped it into 12 pieces. I mean, just picture trying to tear a talit into 12 pieces. I don't think it's going to tear cleanly, but somehow he did it. Maybe he used a knife. I don't know. But he tore it into 12 pieces, and he said, here's why I'm doing this. Because God is going to tear the kingdom, the Malchut, away from the hand of Shlomo, Solomon, and give you 10 tribes. But he shall have one tribe. That makes 11, not 12. Right? Okay, so we got a problem already. But he shall have one tribe for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city that I've chosen from all the tribes. So we got a problem. We're missing a tribe. Unless two are together. So which two do you think are together? Is it Judah and Simeon or Judah and Benjamin? And we know it's Judah and Benjamin. Why? Because he says, for the city which I have chosen. Where's Jerusalem? Which in Benjamin. So Benjamin and Judah have always been together. But that did not make them not part of the northern tribes. Because Benjamin, a lot of Benjamin defected to the north. And a lot of Benjamin defected to the south, which I'll show you next week. So here's where the problem starts, and I want you to just, if you want to do some study toward next week, I want you to think about this. And you're going to really have to think about it. Why would God bring Gentiles into a Jewish setting, a Jewish world, and then just go, see ya? Because that's how a lot of people feel. Like, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to say? What's my role? Am I a Messianic Gentile? Am I a Jew now? Am I Israel? What am I? And so this is what I want to answer, because this has just gotten way out of hand on the internet and really all throughout the earth. And we saw this, a couple weeks ago when Kanye West said, I can't be anti-Semitic, I'm a Jew. And he meant an Islamite from the nation of Islam. So that's how big this has gotten. It is now in the popular culture. All right, let's see if we can pray our ways out of this into next week. Lord, thank you for laying out so clearly what the story is. So there's very little confusion. And I ask that you would also speak to many, many, many teachers to begin to make this clear, because there are so many people in the dark, so many people confused, so many people without direction. And I ask that you'd begin to show not the role of the Jew now, but the role of the Gentile. What is the role of the Gentile in your body? What are they supposed to be doing? Who are they supposed to be? And I ask that you'd reveal it all over your planet, all over your body, and then it would become clearer and clearer and clearer as the days go on. In the name of Yeshua, thank you for your Ruach HaKodesh. Amen. Let's stand together for the Aleinu. I'm going to have to go way forward. Oh. Okay. Think about these words. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, l'tet gedula l'yotzer bereshit, Shelo asanu kagoye ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama. Shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goralenu kakol hamonam. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that he has not made us like the nations of earth, not made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu Yiyeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day, the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim Lifnei Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is he. We acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. There is nothing but him, as Torah says. Know that the Lord, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od milvado. There is nothing else but him. Shabbat shalom. Let's do Kiddush, please.